So welcome back. And so this is the second training on from Sell More Books, how and find your fans. And this week we're going to look at terrific titles. But first, I just want to thank you and acknowledge you for being here, because it really is a big deal. And I don't want to sound trite about it, but there are so many authors. I see so many authors who just have a great message, have a great story or a great message to get out to really help people, and they just put it out and that's it. And I've been guilty of that myself. And I really want to help you to get your message out. So the fact that you're here, the fact that you're showing up and going through the work and doing what it takes, it is really special, because you guys are already a part of the very few and not the majority who the millions of books out there on Amazon that are just sitting there undiscovered. Because this is really all about getting your message out, because the world needs to hear your message. So let's make sure we get it out there for everyone. So today we're talking about terrific titles that sell. And we're going to be talking about making them compelling and clear and SEO and a bunch of other things. But the title is really, really an important aspect of having something that sells. Eve Bunting said this: titles are very hard. Sometimes a title comes before I start to write the book, but often I finish the book and I still don't have a title. And this is very common. As I also saw a quote from Judy Blume, who was saying that often she didn't have a title for her book until the publisher was calling her up saying, "I'm ready to show it to the media. What's it called?" So if you don't currently have a title in mind, don't feel bad. You're in good company. However, it is very, very important to have a title, intentional title. Judy Blume can afford to just pull something out of her mind at the last minute, because she already had a huge audience. All the schools are buying her books and it's going to sell no matter what she calls it. That's not the true truth for the rest of us, unfortunately. And the title is going to be a major make it or break it thing as far as book sales are going to go. So we're going to look at the importance of the title. We're going to look at SEO, what it is and why it's important here, how to find search terms, and I'll explain that if you're not sure what that means, and all the aspects of creating a terrific title for your book. So this first lesson is on the importance of a terrific title. So why is a title so important? Because it's imperative to your sales. One of the biggest difference makers in whether a person even looks at your book, is the title. So it's something that you actually need to put a lot of thought into and be very conscientious of it and spend some time with it. Don't just, it's fine if you got a working title, something that you've already got in mind, and that's fine. Maybe you'll end up using it, but I'm going to encourage you to come up with a whole bunch of other possibilities based on the criteria that I'm going to show you, and then make a very, cognizant decision based on that. Because as I say, nothing, book titles are going to be one of the biggest impactors of whether people buy your book or just move on to the next one that they see. So, and I'll give you a real life case example of this. And I talked about this a little bit in the free training, but this was one of the first books we put out, Receiving God's Love. And Receiving God's Love is actually a really good title for this book, because that is what the book is about. It's about, actually receiving God's love, not just, mentally, but in your heart, knowing that you're good enough, knowing that he loves you no matter what. And really, a fuller title for this would have been the importance of receiving God's love and how it impacts your health. would really be the most correct title that we could have given this book. Having said that, Wiz's title, it sold 2 to 4 a month, 2 to 4 copies a month. It didn't sell. And this was Wiz having another book that was relatively successful. This one still wouldn't sell, right? And there's just because there's a whole bunch of things wrong with this that you're going to see as we go through this material. But, you know, quickly, it's just kind of doesn't really tell you what the book is about. It is about receiving God's love, but it doesn't share what's in it for the reader, right? So I'm receiving God's love. So what? What does that do for me? Right? And people not cognitively thinking that, but really that's what they care about, is what's in it for them. Why do they care about receiving God's love? It doesn't answer that. It's not clear from that what those books really about. And, you know, there's a bunch of other things. So we retitled it, and we titled it Love God, Lose Weight. And so this title, you know, right off the bat, it's got a little nice beat to it. Love God, Lose Weight. It's more memorable. It's more catchy. It tells you right here, lose weight. This is the payoff. This is what the readers actually care about. And then we put on a subtitle here, which shows the benefits, like what they're going to get out of reading this book. And this is SEO now. So now we put in a bunch of SEO stuff. So I'm going to explain all this more in detail. But the difference was 2 a month to 70 a month. So that is a huge difference. Who would prefer to have 70 a month over 2? Yeah, exactly. So just that change had that kind of result. So your title is that important. It can really make or break your sales. So so the aspects, are not the aspects here, but the functions of the title are A, this is the initial sales copy. And you don't normally think of a book title like that, but it really is. This is the first sales copy that a reader is seeing. And they're generally seeing this with a bunch of other books, right? Because they're doing an Amazon search, they're getting a list of like the top 12 from Amazon. And so this is your first thing that you have to catch their attention, grab their attention, and let them know what your book is about. So it really is a bit of sales copy that's going in here. You're grabbing their attention. And, you know, ways that you could grab their attention is by challenging or subverting their expectations, especially in a nonfiction book. You know, like my wife, her first book was Weight Loss God's Way. And that kind of subverts people's expectations. Like, what do you mean God's way? How does that work? Right? So now you got them hooked. Now they want to know a little bit more. And the title should, if it's a nonfiction book, it should flat out tell them what it's about. If it's a fiction book, you should suggest what the book is about, right? You may not, yeah. So, and we're going to get into the differences. So I'm going to break up fiction and nonfiction later on. The title should help readers self-identify. Dee was asking last week about, you know, doing a quirky title, and that's perfect. You know, because if that's what her readers will identify with, then yes, you want to do something that's a little quirky. If using a cuss word that helps identify your readers, then do that. If your readers are very academic, then you're going to, you know, maybe use a very technical title. If your readers are, you know, just very general readers, then you're going to keep the wording very simple, right? So just in how you phrase it will help readers to self-identify that this is something that they're looking for, right? And again, this isn't something people aren't conscious of it, they're not aware of it, but it just appeals to them, right? They just read it and it just appeals to them because they like quirkiness, right? So it's like, oh, I like that, that's cool. If it's a nonfiction book, the title or the subtitle in particular here will tell them what the benefits of the book are. And so, for this one, we tell them you get freedom from emotional eating, overeating, and self-sabotage. So those are the benefits that you get from this book. If it's a fiction book, you'll use the subtitle to identify the genre and the twist, right? So, and I know fiction writers, this is kind of like, you hate this, and I get it, but you need to do this these days so people can find your book in the first place. So if you're doing a Western horror romance, and so you're going to come up with some clever title that kind of suggests that, but in the subtitle, you just want to flat out state it, right? Just flat out state, romance, and you can change the words up a little bit, but you want to have romance, horror, Western in there, because when people are searching for that, your title's going to come up, and it's going to come up on that first page, and that's what you want. And the last thing is using SEO in the title, and I'm going to explain that more.